Hello, everyone. Hi, Prof. Welcome to my living room. So today we have Professor Thumbi Ndung'u in my living room. So we're going to be talking about his journey, which I think will inspire a lot of people out there. And I've known Prof for I've known Prof for almost 20 years now. And he has been a great source of inspiration to me and many others. So the reason why we're doing this is so that we can, share his journey with the wider community, because I think everyone will benefit from his journey. So I don't want to waste too much time. So Prof, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
All right, thank you, Khei, for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. I'm Thumbi Ndung'u, and I am Deputy Director at the Africa Health Research Institute in Durban, South Africa. I'm also a Professor and Scientific Director of the HIV Pathogenesis Program, which is within the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm also a Professor of Infectious Diseases at University College London.
Wow, that's really amazing. I don't know if you forgot your professorship at Harvard, but
that's right. I am also an adjunct professor of immunology and infectious diseases at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. So all of those are my titles. I'm also, a visiting scientist at Massachusetts General Hospital. So I have many other titles because of my wide academic network, let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also the director of the Sub-Saharan Africa Network for TB and HIV Research Excellence, SANTE, which is a research and capacity building initiative funded by the African Academy of Sciences and the Wellcome Trust.
Wow, that's a mouthful of positions and titles there. That's really inspiring. So maybe before we get into the crux of things, like, okay, you're a scientist, you also like a teacher, I guess you teach. And what did you study to get where you are today?
So actually, I started off in veterinary medicine. So I'm a veterinary surgeon by training. I trained at the University of Nairobi. And then once I finished my veterinary training, I had an opportunity to work with a professor at the University of Nairobi who was doing schistosomiasis vaccine research. And this inspired me to get into research and introduced me to research. And I kind of fell in love with the research subsequent to that. And I got an opportunity to study at Harvard University, first of all, through a short training program with Professor Donald Hahn at the School of Public Health, who was also doing schistosomiasis vaccine research. Then I went back to Nairobi. I worked at the University of Nairobi for 3 years. And when I was there, I had decided that I actually wanted to pursue a research career. And so I applied for a PhD at Harvard University, and I was very lucky to get a scholarship, a full scholarship, to go and do my PhD at Harvard. So I was back there after 3 years and enrolled in the PhD program. So when I got to Harvard, I decided to work with Max Essex, who is a virologist, and enhance my expertise and my specialization in virology.
Wow, that's amazing. So who inspired you growing up? Why did you choose your career path? And it's a combination of things, I see. So
that's a very difficult one for me to pinpoint, because unlike people who can pinpoint one single individual, in my case, it's a lot of people. I was very lucky because I come from a very, let me call it happy family, and a very large family as well. We are 11 children, and it was a very happy environment, I would say, and very inspiring growing up. So I would say that my family has had a lot of big impact on me. And it's very difficult to pinpoint one single individual, but it's not just the family, it's also the environment in which I grew in the village where I grew up in rural Kenya. very hardworking people. So if I had to kind of pinpoint one or two people, it would be probably my parents. But I have to say it's all my family, and it's also the community members where I grew up, who continually, I felt like they were cheerleading me. They were always very supportive and very helpful, and have shaped my career and my growth.
Oh, that's really amazing. So you talk about having 10 siblings. So where are you?
I am actually I'm the sixth born in a family of 11 children, so I'm right in the middle. So I'm the one who, depending on how you look at it, I fit in with everybody, but I'm also the odd one out because I don't quite fit with the older ones, and I also don't fit in very well with the younger ones. So I'm right there in the middle.
I was about to ask, where are you?
I'm the family favorite.
Okay, I don't know. Your mother didn't mention that when we visited your village, so.
I'm not sure my siblings would agree, but that's the way I like to see myself.
So you went to primary school in Gadogo, because I remember one time we had a meeting, a Sante meeting, and we had the opportunity to meet some of your family members, including your mom and your sisters and some brothers. And we went to Gadogo Primary School. I actually forgot to ask you to show us the classroom where you started. And can you tell us about your primary school days,
I mean, I grew up in rural Kenya, in the Central Highlands of Kenya, where I come from a coffee growing area. So we worked in the farms over the holidays and even on weekends and so on. But that's where I grew up. So it's a relatively poor setting, I would say. I wouldn't say that we were particularly poor. In fact, I would say that we considered ourselves well-resourced and rich, although everything is relative. But
yeah,
it had the basic functionalities. But like I say, the people there are very hardworking. They are farmers. They know they like hard work, and I guess they have to work hard to make a living, and so you grow up with those kind of traditions and those kinds of values of hard work and integrity and respect for other people. So that's what I grew up with, and I'm very proud of that background. So Gadogo Primary School, which is where I started, was a resource, you would call it a resource limited setting, very basic sort of educational infrastructure, but it did the magic for me.
Yeah, I mean, those qualities, we still see them, 20 years or 30 years, 40 years later. So that's really nice. So I'm going to take you back to Harvard, because I know you did your PhD in the same lab where I'm doing my postdoc. So I don't know if you can remember, but I want you to briefly tell us about your PhD project, because I think there's some interesting stuff going on that you did or you discovered back then. So tell us what you were doing in medicine.
Well, when I arrived at Harvard to do my PhD, I was very naive because I hadn't been exposed very much to research. I was, a lot of people, when they go to do a PhD, they have already had some years of research experience, and they have had, a significant exposure to sort of, techniques that you use in research. And I didn't have a lot of that. So I had to work very hard to sort of catch on and catch up with everybody else. But as I said, I think I did work very hard, and I had a lot of support from my mentors, Max Essex, Phyllis Kanki, postdocs that were in that lab. It was a very good and conducive environment. So for my PhD also, that's the time that the HIV epidemic was beginning to be recognized as a very serious public health problem. particularly in Southern Africa. And my PhD supervisor, Max Essex, had started a project in Botswana to study the viruses that are found in Southern Africa, HIV subtype C. So I decided that my PhD project would be to generate what we call an infectious molecular clone of HIV subtype C, which at that time was actually not a very easy thing to do. It still is not a very easy thing to do, to generate infectious molecular clones of HIV. So these are viruses that you can clone and use repeatedly in laboratory experiments. So these are very important tools for all aspects of biology, whether it's understanding HIV replication, HIV pathogenesis, understanding immune responses to the virus. You need a virus isolate that you can work with reliably in the laboratory. And so I decided that that was going to be the focus of my PhD work. And so I was the first person to generate an infectious molecular clone of HIV subtype C from patients, directly from patients. And I'm very proud of my work, because even though I struggled in the beginning for my research project in terms of getting it to work, I ended up doing quite well. I published 3 papers as a first author for my PhD, and I won the Edgar Haber Award for Outstanding PhD Thesis, which was, it was a very proud moment for me, obviously, given where I came from and the odds that I had to overcome to actually complete my PhD work.
Wow. Congratulations again. I know we always keep going back and forth about your PhD work, but I know a lot of people now think that, that some people think, oh, doing a PhD is easy. Some people think it's difficult, but we've already highlighted that you had a lot of challenges. Can you touch on if you had other challenges that you experienced during your PhD studies?
Oh, I had a lot of challenges for my PhD. First of all, the project that I was doing was not very easy, as I mentioned. So it required a lot of patience, a lot of hours spent in the laboratory trying to get the experiments to work. And so I had a lot of technical challenges in terms of trying to get the project to work. But besides the challenges that I had in the laboratory, I also, had a young family at that time, and I had to make ends meet in Boston, which is a very expensive city. So I had to do actual extracurricular activities, in fact, to make a little bit of money. So I did jobs such as newspaper delivery. At one time, I was working for Harvard student agencies, doing cleaning up offices after work in order to make some extra money. So it wasn't very easy. And the newspaper delivery job, for example, I had to wake up very early in the morning at around 3 o'clock to go and do the newspaper delivery. And at that time, my wife was also working a night shift in a clinical laboratory. So it wasn't easy, so there was a lot of pressure. And also on a personal level, when I started my PhD, the early years of my PhD, my dad back in Kenya was seriously ill. And he actually ended up succumbing to disease and died where I was right in the middle of my PhD work. So there were both sort of professional challenges, but also personal challenges that made life difficult. Of course, not to mention the fact that I was in Boston, which is the weather can be very challenging, particularly for somebody who came from right on the equator. So I had to deal with Boston winters. So a combination of all those facts. But actually, when I look back, I think I tend to be a very positive person and to have a very positive attitude and to look at the positive things in life. So most of what I actually remember about my life in Boston is very positive. And I do actually miss Boston a lot, other than for the weather.
But you know, you can always come back. I mean, the love is there waiting for you.
I do see Boston as my second home in many ways, actually. And I like coming occasionally back to Boston. I still have friends there. I still have colleagues, some of my former mentors, as well as new colleagues are there. And I collaborate with a lot of people in Boston. Like I said, I have an adjunct professorship at Harvard. So I have a lot of ties there that bind me there. And so I'm very proud to be associated with Harvard University and with all the friends and relationships that I established there.
And also, like your former students, you have a good base of former students here and mentees. So
I would say that actually, other than obviously my family, and one of the things that I'm really proud of, and of course my research, which is my work, which is very important to me. The other important aspect in my life has been to have the privilege of developing other people and growing other people so that they can realize their full potential. So I've been privileged as working as a university to work with young people, and I think I have inspired them, and some have graduated under my mentorship, like yourself, and have gone on to achieve a lot of have had a lot of wonderful accomplishments. So I've had students that I mentored at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and then they ended up at Harvard University. I have students all over the world, at MIT, University of Washington, universities in the UK. So, and of course here in Africa as well. So this has also been one of my greatest joys, is to be able to mentor people and work with young people and inspire them and encourage them and help them to realize their potential.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Congratulations, and keep going. So we're gonna take a break for like a few seconds. Okay, so welcome back to my living room. Today we are talking to Professor Thumbi Ndung'u, one of my mentors, about his inspiring journey. So Prof, welcome back. So I want us to switch gears now and talk about your mentorship experience. I know you touched on a little bit about the people that you've mentored over the years, but you obviously produced so many PhDs. A lot of them are in the US, the UK, all over the world doing really great things. What is the most challenging thing about being a PhD supervisor? And what is the most satisfying thing about mentoring young and upcoming scientists?
Well, before I actually talk about my mentorship experience and the people that I've mentored, can I just take a moment to acknowledge my mentors?
Yes.
I have had a lot of, been privileged to have people like Professor Max Essex. Obviously, he was my PhD supervisor. Before I came to the Essex lab, I was also mentored by people like Donald Hahn, who was also at the School of Public Health. I need to mention Professor George Kinoti from the University of Nairobi, who was my supervisor and mentor at the University of Nairobi. Professor Susan Bogua, Professor Jasper Mumo. All these people really inspired me. And of course, at Harvard, it's not just Max, but also I had people like Professor Phyllis Kanki, Tonho Lee, David Knipe, just a whole bunch of really wonderful mentors. So this actually helped me and prepared me, because I could see how they handled their students and the way they mentored, and I think I learned a lot from them. So I think what I've tried to do is actually replicate what I saw, is some of the good things that I saw from my mentors. One of them is to give you every student is different. That's my, that's the one thing I like to acknowledge. So people have different styles of working. And what you need to do is to, first of all, understand your student so that you are able to tailor the mentorship according to the personality of that person. Some people like to have to be pushed a little bit. Some people, you have to be a bit standoff somewhat. But you always have it in the mind, in the mind, at the back of your mind that this person has a lot of potential. So that's what I try to do, is to try and know what is it that will work with this person. And then I kind of try and tailor my mentorship. I mean, I have some basic, I think, values that I would say, hard work, integrity, just trying to inspire confidence and give confidence to my students and my mentees so they can be confident, because I think that we are all gifted, somewhat slightly different, but we are all gifted in one way or another. And I think if you work hard and if you are humble and are willing to learn from other people, that's very important. I think you will go very far. And also just learning to work with people. I have always been a collaborator in my life, and that value of working together and learning to work together is very important for me. And so that's what I try and do. And those are the kind of values that I try and instill and as I work with people.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I actually like how you talk about understanding different people's personalities. And I think that is really important. Do you think that, this is just a question for other people out there, do you think that PhD supervisors should consider doing a personality test with their students to help them understand how they should be interacting or mentoring their students? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that those kind of tools can help, no doubt, doing like a personality test. But I think also the essence of a PhD and having a PhD is not, in fact, in my view, is not so much what you will do in future with the PhD, is to learn to just critically evaluate situations, no matter what situations there are. Whether you're going to be in science or you're going to end up in somewhere in policy, or even as a journalist, you have to always learn to critically evaluate situations. And so tools like, personality tests might be able to help. But at the end of the day, you have to always be willing to be adaptable in such a way that you're continually evaluating and critically evaluating the person, even as you go along. And because also it can be very different from at the beginning of somebody's PhD, for example, to right when they're in the middle of the PhD to when they are finishing. And I think you need to adapt to all those situations that the student is also going through as they advance in their career. So yes, use the tools that are available, that are out there, but also be willing to be adaptable and to critically evaluate yourself as a mentor, but also critically evaluate the other person and help them to begin to critically also evaluate their own situation, whether it's experiments that they're doing or if they're looking for opportunities in life to move on. Help them to become critical thinkers. And I try to do that. I hope that I set a good example, but also that I say the right things to my mentees.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you as a very hardworking mentor, you work all the time. I don't know a time when you said you were not working. So I want to know, how do you unwind? What do you do to relax? How do you celebrate your successes? How do you deal with failures, like grants, application rejections?
It's not easy to get rejection, first of all. So every time you fail, let's say in a grant application, or you submit a paper and you get a rejection, it's very easy to take it personally. So for me, one of the things that has really helped me is to have like a good supportive network, people who affirm me, family obviously is on top of that. People who can reassure me that no matter what, they're going to stick with me and they're going to help me and that we're in this together. So that helps a lot. But beyond that, I also actually try to do a lot of physical exercise, so I try to exercise almost on a daily basis. I try to, have a supportive circle of friends and family, and I love the outdoors, obviously, as well. And it helps that I live in Durban, where I can go to the beach and walk by the beach and relax a little bit. So that's, but by and large, although I'm a quiet person, I'm also a people person in one sense. I like to spend time with friends and family, and that helps me a lot.
Yeah. So what does your day look like? We talk about exercising almost every day. Like, okay, what does Prof Ndung'u day look like? When you wake up on Monday, what time? What do you do?
So I've changed my routine actually over the last few years. I've tried to experiment with different things. I used to wake up at 5 and go running. Now I no longer do that. Actually, now I kind of exercise in the evening. So I wake up and prepare breakfast and so on, and catch up maybe a little bit on news. I read my Bible actually in the morning, which helps me to keep inspired and to keep myself focused and my feet firmly on the ground. And then I go to the office, and I have meetings after meetings, unfortunately. I have a lot of meetings these days because I'm in a leadership position, which means that I have to meet not only at an organizational level, but also with my students who I like to meet with to discuss their work and progress reports. So it's really a combination of those things. And then I may spare maybe an hour or 2 or 3 where I can work on a paper or a grant application, which is another big part of what I do. And then I go home in the evening, probably around 6. I take about an hour or so to exercise, and then I may sit down, have dinner, watch news or sports. I'm a big sports junkie, so I follow the Red Sox. I follow football. I'm a soccer fan. I'm actually an Arsenal fan. So yeah, so I like all kinds of sports. So these are the kinds of things that I do.
Interesting how you are also an Arsenal fan, but you are still very positive about. Anyway,
they haven't been doing very well lately, so I try to keep quiet about it.
Yeah, but since you have a positive outlook on life, I guess you're always hoping that they'll be better.
They will always bounce back at some point.
Okay, so
I'm inspired by the Red Sox, who for 100 years they didn't win anything, and then all of a sudden,
boom, boom, boom.
Yes, exactly. So hope springs eternal.
Yep. So we are currently going through a lot as a global community, and I just want to know, how has COVID-19 pandemic affected your work or your activities, and how are you coping? What is your coping strategy?
Of course, it has created COVID-19 has created a lot of social isolation. I used to be to travel a lot. Now I don't travel. And then I don't have, of course, one-on-one meetings with people, so I have to do it through video. And generally, our research activities have been disrupted a lot. So there has been a lot of social disruption. I think not so much in terms of work, because of the nature of my work, even the fact that we do a lot of laboratory-based work, and I'm a virologist, so I have contributed to some of the research on COVID. But on a social level, I think there is far less interaction, and working remotely, which I wasn't used to. So there is a lot of social disruption that has happened, I think, in all of our lives, including mine. So that's a bit of the sad aspect about this pandemic.
Yeah. So I know a lot of HIV researchers or experts have sort of diverted or added sort of COVID work to their research and applying similar strategies to COVID. Are you doing the same in your lab? I know you said you contribute to COVID, but are you doing some COVID work? Okay.
Yes, we have been interested in addressing the question of the impact of HIV or the impact of HIV on COVID disease. What does it impact on any immunological parameters or immunological mechanisms? So does the immune response in people who have HIV differ from those who don't have HIV? So that's the kind of research that we are doing. So we have been doing some studies looking at antibody responses as well as neutralizing antibodies. Some of that work is actually under review, and hopefully there'll be a lot more of it coming from us looking at HIV and the impact and TB, as well as other comorbidities, as well as looking at the heterogeneity of the SARS-CoV-2 infection within sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah. So a lot of strategies have been applied to COVID research, and it seems to be working a lot better, like faster development of, COVID vaccines. Why do you think these strategies haven't really worked that fast or worked at all for HIV, as an HIV expert?
Well, I think the first, on top of that list, is the fact that HIV is a very different virus. The biology of the virus is just completely different. HIV, the reason we don't have an HIV vaccine is not that there hasn't been investment. There has been a lot of investment in HIV vaccine research. The reason is that the biology of the virus is very complicated. The virus is very diverse. It exists as a quasi-species, and that's not the case with SARS-CoV-2. Even though you have variants of SARS-CoV-2, the kind of genetic variation you get with the SARS-CoV-2 is not nowhere near what you see with HIV. So I think that's the main reason. But I think in addition to that, there has been a lot more urgency in dealing with SARS-CoV-2 because of the fact that it's a global pandemic that has completely disrupted life, particularly in resource-rich countries. So I think there has been a lot more urgency to developing a vaccine. But I do think that and there has been a lot more collaboration, a lot more resources deployed within a very short period of time by governments and pharmaceutical companies against SARS-CoV-2 than against HIV. But as I said, I think the main reason that we don't have an HIV vaccine is primarily because of the more complicated biology of the HIV virus and the HIV immunology as opposed to SARS-CoV-2. So I still think that there will be an HIV vaccine, but it's going to take much more time. And I think it's going to take much more scientific ingenuity than what we have seen with the SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, absolutely. So you obviously have had a fantastic track record in what you do. You are an inspiration to many of us. So what is your final message to upcoming scientists like myself, people whose work might have been heavily affected or impacted by COVID-19 pandemic? What is your message to everyone?
It's difficult to have just one single message, but because everybody's situation is different. But I kind of feel I'm generally an optimistic person. So I feel that we will have challenges in life, and everybody has challenges, and we go through these challenges. But I think if you are doing something important and you're consistent in it, you don't give up. You keep doing the right thing. Eventually, things begin to turn around. That's the one thing that I learned from my PhD work. That sometimes you might think that you're not learning anything, and it may seem very frustrating. You're going through a very frustrating phase in your life, and you feel like you should give up. But actually, during those dark moments, you learn a lot, and it helps to build your character. And so I think I would have the same kind of advice to people, is to stay put, keep doing the right thing, keep working hard, don't lose your confidence, work with other people, collaborate with other people, and eventually things begin to turn around, and you'll also realize that you're not in it alone, and that you have actually learned a lot, and you have grown a lot as a person, and this will serve you well in life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those words. I just want to thank you, Prof, for making the time to have a conversation with me today. This was part one. We are not done, okay? Next time, we have another topic to discuss. I'm not done with you.
All right. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I believe that your story is really, an inspiration to a lot of us. And the way you have inspired me, I just want to thank you for being such a constant and fantastic mentor. You are very honest with me. If I do something wrong, you tell me. If I'm not on the right track, you tell me. But I really appreciate, because you have turned me into the scientist that I am today. So I'm really happy, and I hope that I'm speaking also on behalf of many students that you've mentored, many people that you continue to mentor. And yeah, I wish you God's blessings, and thank you for what you do for all of us.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Have a good day, Prof. See you part two.
Okay, bye.